Seiya Ota, diseñador, exdirector de diseño, estudios globales y estratégicos en Volvo Group, con muchísima experiencia desarrollando productos y sistemas innovadores del diseño avanzado y estrategia global del User Experience. Welcome, Seiya. Are you there?
Thank you for the introduction, Russia.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. My apology for technical problems as well as the time zone issue. So
don't worry.
Stay
yours now.
Okay. So ready to go. All right. Hello, everyone. Let me ask you a question first. What was on your mind when you went to sleep last night? Were you thinking about the leading brands of Chile, the famous brands, maybe hot dogs? Chances are you are not thinking about brands, companies, or anything like that at all. Myself, I was really worried about the election in the US, so I kept thinking about the election in the US. And nothing about my favorite hot dog brands, merchants, fashion, whatever. But this is also something I learned being a design thinking practitioner for a long time now, that going in, trying to understand customers, users, really try to understand their world. Usually they are not really thinking about the company I was working for, my products, or my brand. So what was in your customer's mind when they went to sleep last night? Were they thinking about your brand or business? Probably not. Probably they were doing social network, reading news, checking pictures, checking their likes, and nothing about your brands. And that was quite painful experience I had, thinking, well, we have such a great brand, such a great product. We have great solutions. They must be thinking about us all the time. Must be thinking about what about that great thing we did. So lessons I learned was that customers are not thinking about you at all. That was really humbling experience. Today, I'm hoping to share with you things I've learned throughout my design thinking practices. I've lived and worked in many countries, worked for quite a few companies. The more I practiced, I made mistakes, but also learned from them, try to improve. What I'm hoping to do here is to help you learn from my mistakes. And some of the mistakes were first time that ever happened. Probably nobody did that, tried that. And I was really fortunate to be the first one to make that kind of mistake and learn from it. So hopefully what I share with you today will help you not to make the same mistake I've made in the past, but also to do something that I couldn't do before. So I know that my name is Seiya Ota. Thank you for the introduction earlier, but I've worked for a few companies. Probably you know a few of those brands. Lastly, I was at Volvo Group in Göteborg in Sweden. Currently, I'm in Stockholm working for Trustly as a VP of user experience. But before that, I worked for many global brands, usually in product development or innovation areas. Developed some products that were quite successful. Also developed products that didn't do well at all. It was quite a disappointing experience when something you put in a lot of effort for potentially years end up not selling at all and getting horrible reviews or getting canceled. So these are painful experiences that helped me become a better design thinking practitioner. This is a really daunting number. Really, when we look into product development, your mind is really in focus on success. So when you see numbers like this, 90% of startup companies will fail. But startup companies is kind of given, they're supposed to fail, but 90% plus of products launched failing. That is a really, really bad number. And probably I was in one of those 90% projects many times. And if you think about grocery stores, you see new brands, new flavors of cereals, ice cream, and all that come up every week. Sometimes 70% of those fail. So a lot of money, efforts, a lot of people's effort going to developing those products, companies, services, and end up failing. So if you were to put money on success or failure of any new product or company being launched, you'll be better off betting on failure. And why did they fail? And there were extensive study done to understand why they fail. But simply put, products being put to market, well, nobody wants them. So they put in all that effort to develop products, sometimes spending years with dozens of people involved, only to find out nobody wants it. So design thinking and other methodologies, Agile, Lean, Six Sigmas, these methodologies are supposed to help improve new product development and market success of those products. Because failure, of course, is really high, especially after you launch a product, after you spend millions of dollars, euros, whatever the currency, and developing products or services, then marketing those, having campaign, then fail. That's a lot of money. So when you fail, you don't want to fail after you invested all that money. You want to fail when it's too cheap. What you want to do really is to apply design thinking in upfront before even product development starts. Before, if it's a digital product, before developers start coding a single line of code, you should fail very upfront. This is where design thinking should be applied to really develop empathy with customers and users, to clearly understand their needs and problem to be solved, and then prototype and get customer feedback to have a clear idea if it's going to be successful if the product's being launched. And of course, there are so many things that could go wrong, even if it's a perfect product, for the product to be successful. So there's no guarantee that if you do this, you'll be successful, but at least you will avoid finding out after months of development that you had a really, really stupid idea. And I had this experience many times. So design thinking. This is a very standard design thinking diagram from Stanford D School. I was trained there as part of the Procter & Gamble program. I spent weeks there, and I was trained as a facilitator as well as a trainer. I've been doing this since 2007, being a practitioner as well as the trainer. And I've learned so many ways that I could apply this wonderful process or methodology in the wrong way, or hastily apply some parts of it and completely ruining the promise of design thinking. Today, I like to focus on two things, really, two most important things in my mind. If you miss these things, you will fail. And if you do this thing really well, you will have a really pretty good chance of success. So I like to really focus on empathize and define parts of design thinking today. And I will talk about some examples from Volvo, how we applied it, and what we have learned. Again, this is a really popular and famous design thinking diagram showing design thinking is about business, technology, and about people. So desirability, viability, feasibility is something that design thinking is striving to balance. But design thinking really is about human or people. It's really starts with empathy. So that's all about people. And at the end, when you test with people. So to me, design thinking is nothing but about human. And IDEO would talk about this as human factors. Really, it's about people. So to empathize, you need to understand who you need to empathize with. When you do empathize wrong who, you probably will be solving wrong problems, or maybe right problems, but for wrong people. So let's talk about who. And whom you really serve, because design thinking at the end is a tool to help a business organization, or maybe there's a social issues that need to be solved. Design thinking can be applied to any of those things, but it's a tool that we use to serve some purpose. So when we talk about empathy, we need to understand whom we serve. So imagine you are the service provider or product provider, and you are serving the customer. Quite straightforward when you have only one customer. Let's say that you are a baker. You want to be successful with a customer. You have only one customer, so you will talk to your customer, apply design thinking process, develop empathy, understand the deep needs, and come up with something he really, really wants. That's croissant. And customer falls in love with it, and your business thrives as long as he's only one customer you have. But usually businesses have more than one customer, and customers with different needs and desires. So when you talk to them, they will tell you different things. And sometimes you don't have one solution, you come up with many solutions, and you can meet many of those customers' needs. And this is still simple. But when you're serving a customer who's serving customers, where do you start? And when you develop empathize, should you develop empathize only with the customer that you serve? In this case, let's say that you're a bakery supplying a cafe. So your specialty is baking those goods, and you bring those goods to coffee shop, and they're going to display those baked goods and serve her or his customers. So sometimes businesses think only thing you need to do is talk to your customer if it's a B2B. In this case, as a bakery, baked goods product supplier, you only talk to the cafe owner. Maybe that's the only thing you need to do. But if you really understood what makes your customer love your customer's products, that's a pretty good chance you can serve your customer better. And you can really understand and anticipate what you need to do to meet your customer's future needs. So when you do empathy work, or really observation field work to do to uncover your customer's needs, you want to really go beyond just your customer, really understand 360 who in customer's business, not only she or he serves, but who works there, who is a stakeholder, and also maybe the neighboring businesses. So you really want to do 360 empathy exercise, not just your direct customer. And once you do that and you develop deep understanding of your customer's customer, chances are your customer really appreciate you, because you don't just bring baked goods to your customer, but probably you bring some insights your customer didn't have before. Let's imagine a bit more complex business model where, let's say, you are the flour or baked goods raw material supplier, so maybe flour, sugar, what have you, and you supply baker with your goods, and your baker supply the coffee shop, and coffee shop supply that goods to the end customer. So where do you finish? Where do you end your empathy exercise? Should you just do your customer and customer's customer, or should you try to really understand end customer's needs? In the other case, it may be a bit more complex. You might be a supplier of a vehicle who is moving baked goods or delivering baked goods from bakery to customers, small shops or homes. So you're basically serving a truck driver or truck owner who is moving baked goods from bakery to their end customer. Where should you stop empathy exercise? Is it enough to understand driver's needs or truck owner's needs? Or should you really understand end user's needs who has nothing to do with the business? I would argue that the more you understand the value chain, the more value you can add, more latent needs you can uncover to really enhance your customer's business. So who really is your customer? So everyone in your value chain is your customer. And this is a framework called personal ecosystem. There's a blueprint template you can use to capture complex relationship the personas have. For example, the truck driver. Truck driver may not be owner of the truck. So the decision maker to purchase your truck actually has nothing to do with the truck driver, but the decision maker may not even drive the truck or may not even have a driver's license. So sometimes people who make decision to purchase your service or goods may not be the end user of the service or goods you provide, even within the company, the customer you serve. So it's really important to understand how those different players come in play, who influences what, who make what kind of decisions, and who use the products you serve or services you provide. Now, let's talk about what. Once you understand, you need to really develop empathy and deep understanding and insight of those personas you serve, the whole value chain. You need to understand what their needs are and what you can do to meet the needs. If you recall, main reason for new companies or new products to fail is because they make products no one wants. What you want to do is to make products people want. So how do you do that? This is under learning. When I started out design thinking, when we started to do field work a lot, I led a lot of interviews, customer visit, field studies, and all that. And design thinking process encourage you to do that with your colleagues. If you're a designer, you want to bring engineer, marketing. If you're marketing, you want to bring everyone that you work with, engineers, designers, all that. So team of people go to customer, interview them, and there's also really good interview guide in design thinking toolkit. But often we forget all that things we learned in the classroom when we face customers, when customers start to tell you, oh, wow, great, thanks for coming to see us. This is exactly what I want. If you build this and ship it next year, we'll buy thousands of those. And when you hear that, or when you show some idea to them and they say, oh, I love it, please build it, I will buy it next year. It's difficult not to get excited about that. So often you end up going back with express needs of customers or solution idea the customer provided to you. What happened though is that as a service provider or provider of the goods, you have a strong bias. And when you talk to customers, and this is something I've done, I'm guilty of doing as working as a part of the team members of, be it computer maker or kitchen goods, what have you, you bring a bias. And often as researcher or interviewer, you have confirmation and solution bias, and you seek out customers ones that fit what you have, the solutions you already have. So you want to hear that. You want to really help companies succeed. You want to be part of the successful project. And if you're a drill company, and when your customer says, I want a powerful drill, you start thinking about all the powerful drills you have in the inventory and try to help the customer buy it. Or you think maybe I can do better than what he asks. So instead of just making a powerful drill, we can make it very modular. We can make it call lists, what have you. You try to meet with all best intentions customers' needs by responding to their expressed needs. But if you really try to understand what customer really wanted to do when he said he wanted to have a powerful drill, he really wanted to just hang a picture. And if there's a supplier who provides a solution that doesn't require drilling a hole in the wall, there's a really good chance your customer will say, wow, I didn't know this, but this is perfect for my needs. I just needed to make hang a bunch of pictures. I didn't need to make a hole. Actually, if I make a hole in my wall, I have to pay my landlord for that. So I really don't want the drill. And this happened many times in my career when we had a really strong expressed needs from customer coming in directly or through marketing or different department, even from a boss. And we get really excited and we say, okay, let's do this, and end up developing product customer really didn't want. But you cannot blame customer for that because customers really don't know what they want in the future. So with design thinking, what you want to do is to build empathy, being in their shoes, to really look at everything from their point of view, not just features or products that they're buying from you or you're trying to sell to them, but you really want to understand the whole workflow, whole value chain. You really want to understand what they do first in the morning, what they think, when they go to bed, pains, gains, all things that your customer care about. So you want to really build empathy from their point of view, in their shoes, for their whole life. And in this way, you can really understand their deeper needs and wants. And there's a pretty good chance you can develop something that customer even didn't know he or she wanted, but she or he will love. With technologies, really, new technologies becoming available, disruptive technologies changing the way we work, or something like pandemic changing how we live, it is really, really difficult to predict what future will bring. And also, it's difficult to predict what customer will want. So instead of really trying to get answers through talking to customers or understanding customers' needs today, with design thinking process, you can really try to project their current needs or job to be done and to model what design future customer. If you can envision who you want your customer to become in the future, there's a really good chance that you can come up with really creative, innovative idea to serve your future customers' needs. There's a really, really good book. It's not new, but even today, I read this once in a while because there's a really, really good insight, examples, and all that. Michael Schrage is an MIT lecturer. I was fortunate to listen to his lectures a few times and spoke with him a few times. He talks about downside of innovation, but he also talks about behavior changes and how you can really mold the future customer and design your business to that. I highly recommend this book. And also, when you speak with customers and understand their needs, not all the needs are same. This is also where I made a mistake in the past with various projects that if there are strong needs and also the business drivers expressed by customers, automatically think that's a priority thing to do. If you have a limited time and budget, you want to focus on things that really make a difference. So when you understand the strong desire for customers for certain needs, certain problem to be solved, there's a tendency to focus on that. One thing I found really, really useful is to use Kano model to delineate different kind of needs. If you're not familiar, I can go over quickly, but please do Google. There are many good descriptions. But basically, what this model says is that there are certain needs that even if you meet 100%, you will never, ever make your customer satisfied. So these are called basic needs. These are minimum requirements. You can call them hygiene factors, that if you don't meet these needs, they don't even consider buying your product. Let's say you are selling a car, and you have a new electric car that's really cheap and small and really convenient for the streets of Santiago. And you have all those requirements, but you have a limited budget. Let's say that your car doesn't happen to have a headlight, so it can be driven only during the day. It might not even be legal, but if you don't have a basic things like headlight, people won't buy your car, right? Or imagine a brake. You have a brake, but you have to make it cheap, so only work 5 times. So of course, nobody's gonna buy that. So there are basic needs that's going to be required, and often, especially in the high-tech companies, because existing solutions may have a lot of problems, strong desires from customers when it comes to needs, they often include basic minimum needs that, of course, you have to have. And that's not going to make you successful in the business. I still see often a lot of initiatives trying to just address this, hoping to win customers. It doesn't even retain your loyal customers. If you have quality issues, you have to fix it. Telling your customer you fix your quality problem is not going to make your customer want to buy your products. And then there's a comparative, something called performance or quality attributes. It's usually called ER, performance, ER meaning better, cheaper, something that ends with ER, faster, smaller, bigger, whatever, right? So these are ER attributes. The more you provide, the more your customer will love. So more shampoo in one bottle, cheaper. The things that easily your competitors can copy. And there's a limit to how much you can provide these attributes within the cost or within the ability to produce those attributes. So this is something that's going to satisfy your customer if you provide more of, and if you provide less of it, often they are dissatisfied. So it's really linear, blue line, and then green ones are the ones that you really want to have as part of the offerings, the unique values, differentiators you can provide to the customer. To do that, you need to really understand your customers really well. So when you do design thinking, you want to really focus on the green part, differentiated or unique values you can provide, so that your business success will be more likely than not. So this is where often when customer says you develop products I don't want, well, you might have probably met the basic requirements. Maybe you had some features competitors had, but you didn't quite meet your customer's need. So design thinking is most powerful in addressing this differentiated, unique value attributes. The other hierarchy I want to talk about here is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, similar to Kano model, just meeting basic needs will not help you become competitive. In the past, esteem or prestige compared to others, having something neighbors had, driving BMWs and all that, especially with the social network, has become a really strong tool for marketeers to drive demand, create demand, and drive demand. But you can probably do better than that, especially with Gen Z, when they focus values and things they resonate with more than things they can materially satisfy. So you may want to think about this hierarchy as well when you develop solutions for the expressed or latent needs you uncovered. With pandemic, a lot of things changed. City shutting down, and restaurants now being able to operate, shops now being able to open stores, e-commerce became extremely successful. Even before the pandemic, there was a huge growth in e-commerce. And this data was before the pandemic. The global parcel shipment volume was forecasted to reach 200 billion by 2025. That's an insane number. You just imagine 200 billion packages flying around, driven around. By the way, today, this figure, 2020, I believe, was below 20 billion. So it's an exponential growth that's being projected. So this is a project I was involved in Volvo, my previous company. Campex was a special innovation campus they developed. And because some of the new problem to be solved was something that was not part of the core business, they needed to create a special area for people to be isolated from more legacy work, and also to collaborate with external people, food driving innovation. So Campex was more of a public space where people from outside could come in, and also have a space to collaborate. Startup companies were invited to participate. They had a space there. And I was in one of the Campex projects where we explore the urban transportation, but really urban delivery. I'm going to share with you how we apply design thinking, how we uncovered unexpected insight, and how we shifted our thinking. Although I'm not going to get into what solutions we came up with, because that's still under development and confidential. But the approach to what we did was, I believe, applicable to any business, and I found this approach applicable to my current work, which is financial services. So it's quite universal, I believe. So before pandemic, this was only a problem. Too many goods to be moved around in the city, to be delivered. And companies were struggling to save cost. There was really, really interesting data that showed that 53% of the entire delivery chain cost of that is in last mile delivery. They call it last mile, but really, really last few kilometers or even less, really delivering packages or parcels to your door. That part of the delivery costs more than goods coming from overseas, China, or goods flown from different parts of the world. So if you think of the whole journey, it's a really, really expensive portion. Probably it's less than 10% of total distance of the goods travel, but most expensive. So this is where a lot of companies, transportation companies and logistics companies believed where the innovation should happen and where the cost saving could be disruptive in encouraging growth of the e-commerce. So a lot of consultants did a lot of studies, and this is coming from Frost and Sullivan. So when we started this initiative, we had this data clearly indicating 53% of the total cost of goods being transported to your door was in urban freight. And out of the urban freight cost, 76% was for the cost of drivers. So of course, innovation in this case, trying to create value, should focus on reducing that 76%. So how can you reduce the cost of drivers? That should automatically translate to really reducing the e-commerce cost of delivery and encourage more goods to be moved. So that's the kind of logical model behind that. And also companies like McKinsey saying, transportation companies, there's no money in building trucks or vans. you need to move to autonomous self-driving cars or connected vehicles, all those high-tech solutions where technology is being developed with exponential speed, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all that. So all those buzzwords. So big consulting companies would want to tell you that if you want to be innovative, if you want to get the chunk of business in this growing market, e-commerce, you have to go after these new trend. So it's a technology push. And often the reaction of large companies is, okay, so let's have innovative solutions. Let's make a self-driving truck, self-driving bus, drones delivering pizza, or the robot car driving a box to your door. So that's a technology solution. What's interesting is that this picture shows no human at all. And if you start really think about how this would happen, so Santiago, you're living in third floor, ordering pizza. Can a drone go up your staircase? Or do you have a window the drone can fly into? Or this Amazon Prime thing, can this go up the staircase and press the button elevator and get to the right floor? Doesn't happen. What we did, instead of trying to make those technologies work for that cost reduction objective, we went out in the field and observed what's actually going on in last mile delivery. A team of us woke up 4 a.m. and followed delivery people and intercepted them, took pictures, interviewed them, videotaped them, the typical design thinking process. And not only in one place, but wanted to observe different countries, different cities, different sizes of cities, different time of day, different kind of category of delivery, and also any reverse of delivery. That's the collecting garbage, right? Something goes in, need to go out too. What we observed was that delivery vehicles jamming the street, being a roadblock to other vehicles. Urban traffic already quite bad, was made worse by those trucks. But also, as you can see on those pictures, most of the time we saw truck when we followed them, they were not driving at all. And what we saw was drivers sorting things, drivers moving things around, carrying things. They were doing anything but driving. So if you made a robotic trucks that drove itself, you will not actually save labor costs because you still need someone to be sorting things, carrying boxes to the door or up the elevator. And robotic trucks probably will be sitting on the sidewalk, blocking people, waiting for the driver to come back. Driver who doesn't drive, but delivering goods. So what we found out was that just by observing, we could really understand what the underlying cost of that 73% that we discovered. And we understood that it's not about improving vehicle. And also we uncovered a business opportunity to actually make that last mile or last really few hundred meters delivery new business opportunities for people to participate in. So one of the many things we did was to come up with different business ideas to take that last part of the delivery out of the driver's hands and for different business ecosystem or the people to participate in the ecosystem. Many startup companies in Singapore, sponsored by the government, has those solutions as well. Just like the campus, Singapore has an innovation campus in universities and experiments and all that. So it's really interesting to see how they are trying to transform the problem being identified as the opportunity to create a new almost industry, you might say, a bit like Uber of the last meter delivery. And that was not even a concept 5 years ago, but now it's becoming a really, really popular concept as well. So by looking at whole ecosystem, personal ecosystem, go beyond just your customer, observing, but also to really understand what's really going on around the customer's activities, you find opportunities to create more values. And what we also observed was that it was not about delivery or transportation. It was about the city growing, and it was about the pain of population growth and population migration to the cities. So the problem we identified wasn't about making delivery cheap. It was really about addressing needs of urban dwellers. Needs of urban dwellers who may not be the customer of the e-commerce delivery. So people live there, the pollution delivery causes, the noise pollution, air pollution, accidents that could be caused. They are all part of the human aspects of design thinking. We should be really considering not just understanding how to use design thinking to save costs of drivers, how to make robotics vehicle sell well. So I really understood that true power of design thinking when I start to see bigger problems. Electric vehicles won't help much when there's no charging station. And more people are going to move to urban cities anyway. So actually having a vehicle at all in the city environment doesn't make sense at all. More people move to the urban cities, urban areas mean that they are not going to be close to the source of food. So how do you manage that? Can you grow food in the city instead of transporting these things in? And there are only 1.2 billion cars. In many cities, drivers spend more time looking for parking space while stuck in traffic jam than actually driving the vehicle. So it doesn't really make sense to solve the demand of a more delivery of the goods of people in urban areas by creating more vehicles, shipping more vehicles. You're going to be creating more problems than solving the problems. Again, applying design thinking in a more macro way, you can identify the opportunities, but also avoid the pitfall of by solving problem, you actually create a bigger problem. And I have seen design thinking contribute to that. So as a practitioners, I urge every one of you to really think, step back a bit and think really the human part of design thinking as a part of the human community, really try to address not just the needs of market demand generators, that's basically companies trying to sell things, but try to really address bigger picture, bigger issues, and try to make that as part of the value you create. So instead of trying to make, let's say, young audience, let's say Gen X, Gen Z, younger generations, through influencers, make them want to buy things they don't need. And that's esteem, part of the pyramid. Why don't we try to really find out what they really care about? And we know that Gen Z are socially conscious, and they are the generation that's going to be impacted by the climate change as well. Right now, they don't have much power because often businesses see them as a market opportunities. Businesses don't see them as someone we can support to help fulfill their potentials or dreams. So what if really try to address the top of the pyramid when we use design thinking, and try, instead of trying to generate demand, try to really unite people with some common desire. It's really rare thing. That's rare that people really come together and drive the change and actually have a result. Chile just went through that. But probably you all went through pain, and it didn't happen overnight, it didn't happen quickly, because change is difficult and can be scary. And not change is comfortable. And that's same for any design thinking problems that you face. This is another thing I learned. Regardless of how desirable your solution, concept, or actual product you develop might be, people still don't want to change. So you have to get over that pain threshold of change. Even if you have a better solution, best solution in the world, people still, most of the time, prefer to stick with old solution that can be painful, but they're used to. So you want to really address how you might influence reducing the perception of pain of change and difficulty of change. And when you do that, though, I mentioned persona ecosystem. If you run a company, if you're in a business, if you have a partner running a business, even if you have a business that you're self-employed, just doing own things, everyone around you is also customer. So as a company, employees are customers too. And when you think about change, so example, the Volvo is really, really large company, traditionally strong on engineering diesel vehicles. And there are over 10,000 engineers making the best diesel engine out there. It's an extremely difficult engineering challenge. When you tell them electric truck can be designed, engineered, and manufactured with handful of people, 50 people probably is more than enough. If you look at Tesla, everything is done by robot. Electric vehicles are so simple to engineer and build compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. People who've been building diesel engine would not like that. And they would not be interested in building electric vehicles because there's a really good chance 90% of the colleagues will lose their jobs. So when you think about change, even for the better, there'll be a pain that you have to address with the change. And often that's in your company. It can be your family members in the company as well, right? So when we think about ecosystem using persona, I encourage you to use ecosystem blueprint to expand the stakeholders to not just your customer and customers and all that, but also your own employees, your colleagues, and all that. And to use design thinking tool to try to create a solution that will help everyone, that will elevate everyone. And after so many years of practicing design thinking, and it has become a bit of buzzword and being criticized and all that, but I still believe the power of design thinking. It has a huge potential to solve real problem. And it's a really, really a democratic tool. Anyone can use this. And with the best intentions, it can really solve wicked problems we face today. So I'm really hopeful with the community here with design thinking. We face today a lot of problems, but we can solve that and we can create a better place. So that is the end of my presentation. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Seiya. That was so interesting.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna make a question, just one for you, because of a matter of time. We have to finish. So I'm gonna read it first in Spanish and then I'm gonna translate it for you.
Right.
Ahora vamos a ir con una pregunta del público. ¿Cómo puede una persona ser empática con tanta gente? El cliente de su cliente, etc. ¿Hay alguna técnica que pueda sugerir? How can a person be empathic with so many people? The client of your client, etc. Is there a technique that you can suggest for that?
easy step is start with something you know, and so you have to make some assumptions, and then start to map the person's journey. Let's say the baker. Then you can see what he or she does in the morning. Start mapping. Start to create a story, but his or her journey throughout the day. Then you're gonna start to see the intersection with that persona with other personas. So by creating those different journeys and understanding intersections, really observing intersections, you can start to see the whole world around that person. So if it's a company, often what happened was that we would go talk to someone in the company thinking that is a person who tell us the answers. More often than that, we were told to go talk to someone else. So by starting somewhere, if you try, you end up talking to many people somehow anyway. And you want to map things out, and you want to ask questions, take notes. And when you come back, you want to map things out with Post-it. And if you do it with more than one person, 2-3 people do this, you get different point of views. You can create a rich persona ecosystem. And I encourage Post-it.
Okay, Seiya, so much for being here with us.
Welcome.
For your talk, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any question if you email to me, and whatever. And my apology again for technical problem as well as time zone problem.
Don't worry.
Thank
Thanks
you
for your participation. Bye-bye.
Bye.